We will.
Okay, and then secondly, why was it 4:30 in the morning? That's well past last call. It's well past usual restaurant hours. Why so late?
Well, I was with a group of people from Ireland, and there was a party that was at a friend of mine who also happens to be Irish, who has a place that he was actually closed to the public, and we were there very, very late. And all I can say is that I was out with a group of friends from Ireland, and we certainly were there very, very late. And
You've been drinking?
if people want to base their vote on the fact that on a very rare occasion, I might stay out late with friends, that I certainly did do. I don't think that's particularly newsworthy again, but that I certainly did do.
I understand. I really do. It's a tough day. It's a jarring thing to happen, and all the things you said about your family. I get it. But you can't remember what city you were taking them to, what hotel they were staying at, or how long you were in the parking lot.
Joe, what I'm saying is 2 years ago, I was asked to give somebody a ride home. It wasn't where I was staying, it's where they were staying. And I don't know the exact, look, there's hotels that are on 90 West as you head out west. I'm assuming it was Westlake, but I think that there's some hotels that are over the county line. They are all within 2 to 3 miles of each other. This was not a particularly meaningful incident for myself or the other people that were involved, Joe. And was I timing myself in terms of how long we were stopped while we were trying to get our bearings and get a hold of the rest of the party? No, I was not. So I don't want to say an exact time because I didn't consider it particularly relevant then, and I don't consider it particularly relevant now.
Good question over here.
How many people were in the group you were out with that night in the two vehicles?
Probably originally 10 or 11, and by the end of the night, I believe 6, maybe about half a dozen.
Do you recall why it was just the two of you in one vehicle and the other people in the other vehicle?
My other friend that was with me that was a Cleveland native had an SUV, a large SUV that other folks fit into, and we just kind of divided up, and that's how it happened.
Two things. One is, when did you communicate this to your wife at the time, or just more recently, and her reaction, and also how
Sure.
at 4:30, how did you get separated going out the freeway? Because at that time there wouldn't have been very much traffic.
The other folks actually got lost before they ever got on the freeway, so that's where we got separated from the other vehicle. But I will tell you that, look, this is not something where I had to go to my wife and say, look, we've got some big crisis here. The party of people that I'm talking about were at my house around breakfast time the next morning.
Just a few hours later.
Just a few hours later. These are family friends. She knows everybody involved with this whole matter, and we consider them friends. And everybody involved, Peter Hines and Joanne and the whole group, are great people. And they know they've met my children. I have gone to Ireland. I've met some of their family members, and we're close and we're good friends. And you know, my wife and I'm lucky. We have a strong marriage. We have a strong family unit. And to try to portray this like I'm sure Mr. Borges tried to when he tried to give me some advice that I needed to talk to my family, where does this guy get off talking like that to me? That he's going to give me advice that I need to talk to my family? You know, it's just the depths that these guys will go. And all I can say is that I hope that people here recognize that they have overplayed their hand very, very seriously. The fact that they feel comfortable, and apparently Governor Kasich feels comfortable, with his political operatives making comments about my family and getting records about my 17-year-old son's traffic ticket. Maybe there'll be a press conference about that next week. But I just think, I think it says a lot about them. I think it says a lot about them.
So you said you thought Governor Kasich authorized this. What evidence do you have?
Let me put it this way: if my campaign engaged in something like this and I found out about it, I'd fire that person. I'm not interested in my campaign trying to dig up personal information about Governor Kasich and his family. I've never authorized that, and we haven't done it. And these people have, and they ought to be embarrassed about it. And if he didn't know about it, and I think he's enough of a hands-on manager that he knew about it, but if he didn't know about it, he knows about it now. And I want to know if he thinks it's appropriate for the chairman of the Republican Party to be making references about my family. I want to know that. I want him to answer that.
But your emails are all related to the RGA's inquiries, right?
Well, we've asked. We haven't gotten the rest of the information, so we'll see what else, because we haven't gotten exactly speedy responses by from Mayor Clough's office. Let me put it that way. But look, everybody is ultimately responsible for the tone and the substance of their campaigns, and this is what they're focusing on. Make no mistake about it. Their fingerprints are all over it. These are the guys that went on an expedition to find dirt, as the email says directly. And Governor Kasich has to say whether he agrees that they're focusing on trying to find dirt or whether he doesn't. And if he doesn't agree with it, he doesn't condone it, then he needs to take some action with his own personnel.
Isn't this just standard opposition research, though? Look for whatever.
I'll tell you what isn't standard. There are two things that are not standard. Number one is, don't look for police reports that have to do with minor children. That's number one. Number two is, the emails certainly seem to indicate that Mayor Clough and his staff are doing basically opposition research on city time with city resources. And they are not a part of the Republican Governors Association. They are part of a public entity that is paid for by the public. And we do not elect our local elected officials to use part of their time and city resources and city personnel to look for dirt. And if you do that, and we'll see if we have enough evidence to turn over to the prosecutor on that, but I'm quite serious about that. Because there have been times when people have been prosecuted for using government resources for political purposes. And there is every indication that that appears to be exactly what happened. And that is way over the line.
Would you be willing to share your phone records from that morning from 4 to 4:30
Sure.
to back up that you were calling to get directions and to link back up with the other meeting?
I wasn't calling, but you'd have to ask the folks from Ireland. I didn't have contact directly with the folks from Ireland. There were people in the Irish delegation that were calling. Now I will say this, that I think that the entire matter is, I mean, I guess I expect, you know, I chose to run for office and I expect people to try to put me under a microscope. For this trade delegation that's from another country that's here to be dragged into this, and for comments to be made or innuendo to be kind of pointed at them, I think is pretty unfortunate. I mean, again, I have to reiterate, you're talking about something that was not even of a sufficient seriousness to even result in a traffic citation or warning. So I'm much more concerned about whether or not city resources were used in an improper and illegal way. Now that is illegal. Yes.
How long did you know